I'm Tammy. Standing on the podium at MIT, the applause thundered around me. I looked out at the sea of faces, and a wave of emotion washed over me. It was a far cry from the life I once led, a life entangled in the web of family manipulation. I remember the day it all came to a head, in a high-end department store. My brother, Jake, was unemployed but always full of grand ideas. That day, he was trying to buy our mom, Linda, a designer fur stole. "The hell isn't your card working?" I wanted to buy Mom this, but the payment didn't go through, he shouted, his face red with anger. Before I could even react, his hand lashed out, slapping me across the cheek. The store went dead silent. A lady near the jewelry counter gasped, and the cashier froze mid-swipe. I tasted blood in my mouth but refused to show any sign of weakness. "You used my card?" I asked, my voice low and controlled. "Mom needed a gift." "You've got money. You can't be that stingy," he hissed. I took a deep breath and said, "I canceled that card 2 weeks ago." "Guess you didn't get the memo." He scoffed. "You're pathetic, Tammy. You think a promotion at that fancy tech job makes you better than family?" I looked at him, in his torn jeans and dirty t-shirt, his arrogance completely unfounded. "No," I said softly. "I think responsibility does." Just then, Mom emerged from behind the clothing rack. Her voice dripped with the kind of exhaustion that comes from years of making excuses. "Oh, for heaven's sake, stop making a scene. Your brother was only trying to do something nice." "For himself," I muttered under my breath. "Tammy, you've always had a temper," she warned. That line, the one she'd used my whole life, snapped something inside me. I stood up straight, with everyone in the store watching. "You're right," I said evenly. "And this time I'm going to use it." I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and started scrolling. "Every transfer I ever made to cover your debts ends today," I said, loud enough for both of them to hear. Mom's eyes widened in shock, and Jake's smirk faded. I handed him the card. "Here, you keep it. It's worthless now, just like every excuse you've ever given me." Jake spat, "You can't do that, Tammy. You can't just cut us off." "I already did," I said firmly. I pushed my phone across the counter so Mom could see the confirmation email. "Recurring transfer cancelled, effective immediately." Her breath hitched. "You owe him," she started. "No," I interrupted. "I owe him a chance he squandered, not a life raft I keep throwing him into." When we got home, Dad, Robert, was standing in the doorway like a stern old judge. "You children, always dramatics," he muttered. "We'll talk about this later." But later had been the problem for years. It was the excuse that had kept Jake afloat on my charity for so long. That night, I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by a stack of bank statements and invoices. Each line was a small betrayal, marked in dollars. I'd paid his late fees, his rent, and even a large sum for a car repair. I'd given until I couldn't anymore, not because I was cold-hearted, but because generosity without accountability is just self-destruction. Jake slammed a can of beer on the counter and glared at me. "You're making everyone look like monsters." "What's monstrous?" I asked slowly. "It's acting surprised when the people you rely on finally say no." He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "You'll regret this. People change when they need you." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe they finally get the mirror they've avoided their whole lives." The next morning, I called my boss and took the leave I'd been postponing for years. There was a tech conference in Chicago that could really boost my career. I booked the flight with my own card, feeling no guilt, no last-minute stress. For the first time, every decision I made was about building my own life, not fixing someone else's. As I packed my suitcase that night, Mom knocked on my door. "Can we talk?" she asked. I closed my suitcase, took a deep breath, and said, "Not tonight." I didn't sleep well that night. The bruise on my cheek throbbed, But what really hurt was Mom's voice defending Jake, again. In the morning, as I was packing, Mom was waiting downstairs with a cup of coffee. "You're really leaving?" she asked. "I've been leaving for years," I said quietly. "This is just the first time you noticed." "Your brother's upset." "He didn't mean to hit you," she sighed. "Of course he didn't," I said, sliding my laptop into my bag. "He never means anything, does he?" Her jaw tightened. "You're overreacting." I almost laughed. That word, overreacting, you've been using it since I was a kid every time I asked for respect. She crossed her arms. "We just want a family to stay together." "Then maybe you should have taught him how not to destroy it," I replied. The cab honked outside. I grabbed my keys and walked past her, pausing at the door. "Tell him he'll have to find someone else's card to use next time." She flinched but said nothing. On the plane, I stared out the window as the city shrank below me. My reflection in the glass didn't look like the apologetic daughter they were used to. It looked like someone who was finally free. At 30,000 feet, I realized that peace wasn't the absence of family, it was the absence of manipulation. When I arrived in Chicago, the city smelled like cold air and opportunity. The conference center was a towering glass structure, reflecting a future I'd only dreamed of. I checked into my hotel and pressed my hand against the window. "You're here, alone, and that's not a bad thing," I whispered to myself. The first day of the conference was a blur of handshakes, presentations, and conversations. People saw my work, not my family issues. It felt like a breath of fresh air after years of suffocation. By the second evening, a senior executive from Zenith Tech, one of our biggest clients, approached me. "Your automation model is brilliant," he said. "We'd like to discuss a permanent leadership role." I nodded, trying to keep my voice calm while my heart was pounding. "I'd love that." That night, I ordered room service, a steak, a glass of red wine, and enjoyed the silence. No texts asking for money, no calls about family drama. It was just me and the start of a new life. But then my phone lit up. It was Mom. A voice message followed. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Tammy," she began, her voice weary. "Your brother's been arrested. Something about a bar fight and unpaid rent. We need help, just this once." I stared at the wall, at my reflection in the TV screen, and whispered, "Of course." Not in agreement, but in recognition. The cycle had found me again. I didn't call back. Instead, I opened my laptop and drafted an email to HR, accepting the relocation offer. "Chicago move confirmed," I typed in the subject line. When I hit send, I felt a sense of finality. They'd made their choice years ago. Now, I was making mine. The next morning, sunlight spilled over the hotel desk where my new contract lay. My hands trembled slightly as I picked up the pen. For years, my life had been controlled by family obligations. Now, I was free. When I signed my name, Tammy Thompson, Director of Tech Innovation, it felt like reclaiming my life. By noon, I had a dozen missed calls. Mom, Dad, and even a number labeled home. I ignored them all until a text from Dad appeared. "Your brother's bail is set at $7,000. We'll pay you back next month." I laughed under my breath. Next month had been the promise after every emergency for the past decade. Instead of replying, I sent a final message. "Stop calling me for money. Get him help instead of handouts." Then I blocked every number. That night, I celebrated with my colleagues. Champagne fizzed, and laughter filled the rooftop bar. For the first time, I didn't feel like the responsible one in the room. I felt free. When I got back to my hotel, there was a voicemail from Mom. Her voice cracked. "I don't recognize you anymore." I stared at the ceiling, smiling sadly. "Good," I whispered. "You were never supposed to." Sleep came easily that night. I didn't dream of apologies or a perfect family. I just dreamed of moving forward. 3 weeks later, I was in my new Chicago apartment. It smelled of fresh paint and eucalyptus candles. Boxes were everywhere, but I didn't rush to unpack. For the first time in years, I liked the chaos. It meant this was my space, my life. Work was going great. My team at Zenith Tech respected me for my skills, not for what I'd given up to keep the peace. My boss, Sophia, said during a meeting, "You've got grit, Tammy. The kind that comes from surviving things no one talks about." I smiled faintly. Maybe, but I'm done surviving. I'm building now. One night, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, it was Max, a college friend I hadn't seen in years. "Found your address through LinkedIn," he said, grinning sheepishly. "Thought I'd take you out for dinner. You look good, Tam." I laughed, feeling the tension leave my body. I finally feel it. Over sushi and soft music, our conversation flowed easily. He listened to me without trying to fix me, and he asked about my work, not my family. For once, I wasn't the one taking care of others. I was just being myself. When I got home, there were 3 letters pushed under my door, all from my hometown. I didn't need to open them to know what they said. Mom's handwriting was like a reminder of all the guilt I'd carried. I slid them into the drawer and closed it gently. Some things didn't need closure, they just needed distance. Standing by the window, looking at the city lights, I whispered to my reflection, "They raised a provider, not a fool." And I knew that someday, when they called again, I wouldn't answer out of anger. I just wouldn't need to answer at all. By mid-spring, my life was steady and full. I woke up to sunlight instead of emergencies. My inbox was filled with work projects, not pleas for help. One Friday, as I was leaving the office, Sophia stopped me. "You're speaking at the Women in Tech panel next month," she said. "Me?" I asked. She smiled. "You have a story people need to hear." That night, over takeout with Max, I told him about the panel. He raised his glass. "You went from paying your brother's debts to people paying to hear you talk. That's poetic justice." I laughed. "Yeah, but I don't want revenge. I just want peace to be permanent." When he left, I opened one of the envelopes. It was Mom's letter. Her handwriting looked more fragile now. "Tammy, we're worried. Your brother's in rehab. We sold the house. Maybe you could visit when things calm down. Family should forgive." The word forgive didn't sting anymore. It just sounded tired. I set the letter aside and grabbed a notepad, jotting down points for the panel. Boundaries aren't cruelty. Guilt isn't love. Giving doesn't mean losing yourself. Before bed, I checked my email and saw an invitation from MIT's alumni board. They wanted me to keynote a leadership conference. I smiled at the screen. My past was coming back, not to haunt me, but to witness what I'd built without it. Now, standing here on the podium at MIT, I take a deep breath and begin my speech. I once believed success meant being the person everyone could depend on. But sometimes, when you spend your life holding everyone else up, you forget what standing on your own feels like. The audience leans in, and I know that every person in this room has someone who's taken more than they've given. I end my speech with, "When someone tells you you've changed, take it as proof that you've stopped shrinking to fit their comfort. Don't apologize for outgrowing people who refuse to grow with you." The room erupts in applause. I smile, not for validation, but for the confirmation that I'm finally living the life I've always wanted. After the speech, a young student approaches me. "My brother stole from me, too," she says quietly. "I thought cutting him off made me heartless, but you made it sound brave." "It is brave," I tell her. "Because you can love someone and still close the door that keeps letting the pain back in." That night, as the wind blows through the trees on the MIT campus, my phone buzzes with another message from home. I turn it off without reading. I don't need their approval anymore. The world is finally clapping for me.